my dear chitkus, I hope that you all are doing great and I welcome you all to midterm score booster series. For today I am going to talk about how do organisms reproduce in one shot. So I know I do not have to be lagging around and making things very difficult for you. I will try my best to finish this off as quick as possible. So my first question to you children is, what do you mean by reproduction? In easy language, you know that reproduction is basically some process where babies are produced, right? So let's see how you can define it scientifically. Reproduction is a biological process. Do you agree to that? Reproduction is what? Biological process, okay? Fine. And it is a process where a parent organism is going to give rise to a young one, which is genetically or biologically similar. Genetically or biologically similar. It cannot be dissimilar. For example, a human being will be always giving rise to another human being rather than a monkey or a chimp or a dog or anything. Even though our parents say that, oh, I gave rise to a dog or monkey or things like that. But it does not work that in natural life. So basically, reproduction is a biological process of producing offsprings that are biologically or genetically similar to the parent organism. Right? Now we go ahead. Why reproduction is considered to be important? Why do you think it is important? If reproduction stops, then what's the problem? What's the big deal about it? First thing, okay, so before getting into that, I want to tell you, if you want the notes for the same, you can click on the link that is given in the description box. It will guide you to this particular page where date-wise, topic-wise, your PDF links are available. You can just click on that and download the PDF for having a quick and easy reference, okay? Now, I was talking about this thing, why reproduction is important. First thing, for maintenance of continuity of species. For example, if altogether all the human beings decide that we won't be reproducing, if they are deciding that they are not going to reproduce, what will happen? Will the species continue? No. Tomorrow monkeys, they decide that they do not want to reproduce. Will the species of monkeys continue? No. So we want continuation of species, which is why reproduction is important. Okay. Second thing, for maintenance of population size. Similarly, same thing. If they are not reproducing, they are not going to maintain their population size. Now, if population size is hampered in some or the other way, the ecosystem will be damaged. For example, again I am telling you, the human beings are not there. Don't you think that it will cause some trouble to our ecosystem? Because in our ecosystem, children, everything is linked to each other. Everything that you see over here is basically linked to each other. I should have made the other arrow, but still, yeah, you are able to understand, I suppose, yeah. So for maintenance of population size and for making our ecosystem stable, we need to reproduce, okay. Next thing, for creating variations which could lead to evolution of organisms which could survive during unfavorable conditions. So basically it is saying that reproduction is important because in some type of reproduction variations are made, okay, and these variations would let organisms survive during difficult situations. So how does this particular variation occur? We will talk about that just after this. But as of now, I want you to remember at least those 2 points. That is, it helps in continuity of species and for maintenance of population size, so that ecosystem could remain what? Stable. The third one is what? For creating variations that would lead to evolution. So people say that basically scientific proof has been there that we have evolved from monkeys. Basically, how did this evolution happen? Because there had been certain variations which were there in the DNA. So DNA is the culprit. DNA is the one that undergoes some amount of variations in some or the other way, and which is why we all are different. Okay, and this difference, the people who have good variations, they would be able to survive. The organisms that have good variations, that would be able to survive. Okay, and how does variation come? As I said, it comes from the DNA. So DNA, no children, the easiest ways to remember it, DNA has certain alphabets over it. Okay, alphabets like what say A, G, C, T. Okay, where all of them, they are not alphabets actually, they are known as nucleotides. Okay, they are what? Nucleotides. They are nitrogen bases. They are nitrogen bases. A for adenine, G for guanine, C for cytosine, T for thymine. As of now, I won't ask you to remember it. But you have to understand that A is always friends with T and G is friends with C. So if there is A in one strand, in the other strand there will be T, such that they could remain bonded to each other. Which is why the two strands of our DNA are always together, because there will be certain complementary alphabets over here. Okay, now one more very important thing is that the DNA is made up of so many genes. Why do I call it genes? Because one specific area of DNA will be responsible for formation of a protein. Okay, so each specific part of our DNA is going to make certain proteins, and this area, for example, this to this is one gene. From here to here there will be some other gene, from here to here there could be some other gene which is going to code for some other protein, protein 1, protein 2, protein 3. But how does it code? Basically, when these alphabets that I was talking about, they have, when, for example, A, G, C, when there are 3 of them, not in the DNA, it comes in RNA. How does RNA come and all? I am not going in detail, but just understand, this DNA is going to form an RNA, okay? You call it messenger RNA, okay, and this RNA is now going to form what? Help in the formation of proteins. This RNA will be having codes like this in the form of 3, and all the 3 of them, okay, basically when three of the alphabets come together, they are going to code for an amino acid. Similarly, you might have much more of things like that, for example T, A, G, or any random code you just imagine. Again, one amino acid. Similarly, in similar way, our DNA will be responsible for formation of so many, coding for so many amino acid. Not directly but indirectly with the help of RNA. Okay, so there are amino acids. And when these amino acids, they come together, no, you have learned in life processes, amino acids, when they come together, what do they form, children? They form protein. So this is what I was saying, that DNA is the one that is responsible for protein formation, even though indirectly, but yes. And all these parts of DNA that is going to code for a specific protein, you call it a gene. What is it? A gene. Now, when DNA is replicated, what do you mean by DNA replication, ma'am? I'll tell you. So basically, okay, when your parents are there, this is parent 1, this is parent 2. Now, you get DNA from both of your parents, but can they give their own DNA to you? Then how will they survive? Basically, they make a copy of it. In their body, there is a copy being made, and this process of copying the DNA is known as replication. What do you call it? Replication. To replicate something, you call it replication. This is known as DNA replication. And during this process, no, there might be certain changes. There might be certain changes in the order of these alphabets, such that they could give rise to certain other amino acid and certain other proteins as well. Okay, and these variations are something that is being shown in us, which is why we are not exactly similar to our parents. One reason of why we are not similar is that there is 2 DNA that is coming from both mother and father in us, which is why obviously we are different. Okay, we have some similarity with both of their parents. It's not like we are exact replica of one of them, but we have a mix of both of them. So that is one reason for variation. Okay, second thing is this thing, that is when DNA copying happens, there are so many chances that there could be certain changes. Okay, there are certain chances for variation. This is how variations actually occur. They make up some other proteins, which is why we look entirely, or basic, not entirely, somewhat different from our parents as well as siblings. Okay, so I hope this is understood, that it is because of changes during, or basically certain changes during DNA copying, that we have variation. But if you talk about sexual reproduction, it is also because 2 parents are involved and 2 DNAs involved. Okay, but generally if it's something else like asexual reproduction, about which you are going to study now, you will get to know more about it. I should be stopping over here. But as of now, as I said, DNA copying basically creates variation, and it happens during sexual reproduction. Okay, it happens during sexual reproduction. It happens generally also, but during sexual reproduction, it is passed from the parents to us. That's how we look different, right? Now, these variations would lead to evolution. Now, if this is a good variation, obviously it would lead to evolution. For example, just think there's a bacteria 1 and there's bacteria 2. It got the DNA which had some amount of variation, and it got the DNA just like how it was of their parent, okay, with some very little changes. And now the climate, the environment got changed very drastically. Now it's very hot. Now it's very hot, and this particular bacteria is just exactly like their parent, and their parent was not able to, were not able to survive during this hot climate, okay. So obviously this will also die off. But since this particular bacteria which had the variation to survive during hot climate, it will survive, and now it will show evolution. Now it will be the first one to be there, okay, and it will slowly reproduce. Just like that, similarly there will be other bacteria, they will keep on reproducing. Now their lineage would be working. So the ones that have good variations would be able to survive during unfavorable conditions such as hot climate, and now they will quickly continue their lineage. Okay, so that is why reproduction is important. If reproduction is not happening, you are not passing down the variations to other organism. Just understand that. Yeah. Now, so exactly what we just studied there, variations occur because of DNA. DNA term stands for what? Deoxyribonucleic acid. What is it? Deoxyribonucleic acid. Now DNA carries genes. So each part of our DNA, it is known as a gene. Okay, there is no separate thing like gene. Each part of a DNA is known as a gene. Genes are sections of DNA that contains set of instructions. What are these instructions in the format of? I told you, these letters. These letters are what? Nitrogen bases. Now, to produce one specific molecule in your body, usually a protein. So usually what? A protein is being produced, because all of them, they will be coding for what? Amino acid. These proteins control how your body works and grows. Now variation, how does that occur? It occurs due to errors during DNA replication or duplication, such that when errors are occurring, now this code will be changed to something else, and they will be forming some other amino acid, and obviously this will change the sequence of amino acid and giving rise to some other protein. Now it can be good or it can be bad. Sometimes it's bad, that's when probably people can get cancer as well, okay, or some other disease. Now reproduction, it is of two types. One is asexual, okay, and the other one is what? Sexual reproduction. Now talking about sexual reproduction first, it is a type of reproduction that involves the production of an offspring by the fusion of male and the female gamete. So males would be giving rise to sperm and females giving rise to ovum. Both of them, they fuse, and this process of fusion is known as what, children? It is known as fertilization. This process of fusion is known as fertilization, and they are going to give rise to what? A single cell which is known as zygote. A single cell which is known as zygote, we are going to talk about that. So basically in sexual reproduction, there is presence of fertilization. The female and the male gametes are going to fuse. Whereas when you talk about asexual reproduction, it is where there is no fusion of gametes. That means no fertilization. Okay, that means what? We'll come to that. As of now, let's talk about the people who do sexual reproduction. Over here, male and female gametes are involved, and there is presence of fertilization. Let's see what happens there. So basically this is parent 1 and this is parent 2. Okay. So as I said, parents do not give their DNA, instead they make a copy of it. So over here, this particular DNA, okay, if it's like this, okay, just a second. First thing that happens is, it opens up these two strands, 1 and 2, they open up, it becomes like this. Okay, for example, A, T, is it visible? G, C, whatever is Y, and the opposite of it will be over here. So A here is there, so it will T, C, whatever. So they have opened up, and now with the help of certain enzymes, there will be one strand forming over here complementary to this particular strand, that is one strand, the first strand. Then there will be another strand forming around this complementary to our second strand. So if T is here, something A will be there. If A is here, then T will be there, such that all your information which is there in this particular DNA is copied to this particular DNA, and all your information which is there in this particular strand will be copied to this particular strand. Now you have a brand new DNA just like your parent 1. Similarly, parent 2 will be also contributing the DNA. Okay, and during this process there will be certain alterations, certain mutations. Okay, there will be certain mutations or probably certain changes. I'll write certain changes, errors while copying. Okay, there will be certain errors while copying, which is why this is not exactly similar, but most of the times it is like 90% similar. You can think like that. Okay, not exactly true, but yeah. Similarly, here also it would be somewhat different from the parent, but yeah, it is there. Here also errors would be there while copying. Now you think you are a person who are going to get both of this thing. So you are going to show both their characters because they are going to merge. The one that is dominant will be visible to you. So basically this is how variations occur. In the case of sexual reproduction, there are two reasons for variation, okay, which is why we say in sexual reproduction variations are more. Why? Because two parents are involved, both of them are giving their DNA. Second thing, there will be errors while copying as well. So there are two reasons for sexual reproduction to have higher variation than asexual reproduction. Now let's talk about asexual reproduction and let's see why I said that they have higher but the other one obviously would be having lower. So as you know, there is no fusion of gametes, that means absence of fertilization. What happens there? How do they reproduce then? So in them there is only parent 1 and this parent 1 will be just producing another, what say, not child, an offspring. And it happens, it can just happen if, for example, there's an amoeba divides into two. Now there is two amoebae. There is two what? Amoebae. This is what you mean by asexual reproduction. Do you say that the amoeba has a partner over here? No. It is just a single organism which is going to divide itself into two. So over here in asexual reproduction, you do not need a partner. There is only one parent involved. Now you tell me, if there is only one parent involved, I can just rely on variation while there are certain errors in copying. I can just rely on this for variation. Is there something else? Am I getting DNA from some other parent as well? No. There is only this reason for certain variation and this also will be very much regulated. Okay, this also will be very much regulated. So asexual reproduction means basically there is an organism, there is no two parents, okay, and they are going to give rise to their young ones. An amoeba giving rise to daughter amoebae. Why do you call it daughter? So usually that people, why it is not known as son, ma'am? So basically the thing is, they again will be now reproducing, which is why they are known as daughter, because females are the one that is able to reproduce them, right? So which is why it is known as daughter amoebae. Fine, I hope that is also clear. So in sexual reproduction you have two parents, in asexual reproduction children you just have one parent, which is why the variation amount will be really less compared to what? Sexual reproduction. Okay, going ahead, what do we have? What is the importance of DNA copying in reproduction? Tell me. What is the importance of DNA copying in reproduction? So, DNA is a genetic material found in chromosomes. You have to tell that, which are present in the nucleus of the cell. The DNA is the information site for making proteins, and each specific type of proteins lead to specific type of body design. Now, this DNA molecule determines the body design of an individual. Therefore, it can be concluded that DNA that gets transferred from parents to offsprings, and that DNA is something that transfers from parents to offsprings and that makes them look similar. Okay, and how it is important? Again, it maintains the characteristics of species, it helps to continuity of the life, same thing that we studied when we were speaking about what is the use of what say reproduction. So DNA copying happens in reproduction as well, right? That is, DNA copying is a major process in reproduction, and if it is not happening, obviously can we see characteristics of species, continuity of species, anything like that? No. So you can put all the features over here. Okay, it produces variations and all the things, whatever we learned over there, you can put it over there, but in points. Okay, going ahead, why is variation beneficial to the species but not necessarily for the individual? Did you understand the question? Why variation is useful for a species but not for an individual? Now you think, if certain variations have happened over here, just here, and no one else in the whole planet. Is there any use of it? This person, when this person dies off, is there any use? The others are anyways not able to survive because this person had the variation which could let this person survive. But somehow, due to some other condition, this person dies off. Is there any use? No. So if you talk about an individual, it is not useful. If variation is happening in in a species, and one or two of them are getting benefit of it, they can further reproduce and produce what? Another offspring who has this particular quality. Right? So which is why we say that it is not beneficial to an individual, but when it comes to a species, it becomes very important. So the various population of organism interact with many type of ecological niches, as in surroundings. Okay, this is important to them to survive in a given condition. In the case of any damage caused due to ecological conditions of the population gets adversely affected. The organism which are able to survive may reproduce to develop population which is adapted or suited to the varied condition. Hence, variation is beneficial to the species but not to the individuals. Too much complicated. You can just remember it like this. Basically, if it is an individual, the individual will not be able to pass it on through reproduction, the particular variation, to any other organism, and it won't contribute to the continuity of the species. But when it happens in a population, when it happens in a species, the organisms having variations can reproduce and pass on their variations to other organisms and let them also survive. This is how you have to frame your answer. Okay? Now, going ahead, how does reproduction help in providing stability to population or species? As I said, reproduction produces variation, and this variation would be helping them survive any unfavorable condition. You have to make use of the example that I gave you about bacteria. It's given in your NCERT textbook as well. Okay, so one bacteria has the variation, other one does not have the variation. One would be able to survive during unfavorable condition, whereas the other won't be, which is why it provides stability. If that organism is also not there, you are not making things stable. Right? So that is there. What are the advantages of sexual reproduction over asexual reproduction? As I said, it brings out variation. So how many questions are there? You only think, okay, in your NCERT itself. So again, I am telling, variations are there. This variations would let an organism survive, and then obviously this variation would lead to continuity of the species and things like that. If variations are not there, you are not surviving. If you are not surviving, there is no continuity of the species. If there is no continuity of species, the ecosystem is not stable. Okay, which is why sexual reproduction is very much important. Okay, so just with the first slide that we studied, we are able to frame all the answers. If you want, you can go through this answer as well. It is very long. You can break it down. So I just thought I'll just put it to just show you that questions could be framed like this as well. Okay. Now, going ahead with the first type of asexual reproduction. So first we are going to cover asexual reproduction. Then we will be going ahead with sexual reproduction in plants and then animals. Okay, so starting with asexual reproduction, this is the first mode which is known as fission. Okay, what is it? Fission. It is a mode of asexual reproduction which occurs in unicellular organism. Okay, what happens in fission, children? Division of the parent body into two or more daughter individuals. Now you only think, can fission happen to us? Just imagine that Jasmine ma'am is there and Jasmine ma'am is cutting herself down, okay, or fission is happening in my body and now I have two individuals with my half body. Does it make any sense? Can they survive? Can those particular pieces survive? Obviously not. So fission is not applicable to us because, children, we are multicellular organism and we are much more complex. All our cells are interdependent on each other. But when it comes to unicellular organisms like amoeba, paramecium, planaria and all of them, they are unicellular. They are just made up of a single cell, so they can afford to do all these things. Okay, so fission is what? Division of parent body into two or more daughter individuals identical to the parent. Okay, now fission is also of two different types. One is binary fission. With the help of the term binary, you can understand that means two individuals are going to form. Okay, so here you saw division of the parent body was happening into two or more. So it's about the two thing. When an organism divides into two, it's known as binary fission. Okay. So, as I said, it's a division of the body of an individual into two equal halves, each of which functions as an independent daughter individual. Many bacteria and protozoa. Who are protozoans, children? Have you heard about Protista? Okay, there are 5 kingdoms. One is Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and what? Animalia, in which we come, right? Plants come in this, fungus comes in this, protista means all the amoeba, paramecium and all this thing that you have studied so many times, they come into this category. Protozoa is one such category of protista. Monera, it includes all the bacteria. So both these categories, no, they are unicellular organisms. So they can afford to do all these things. We cannot do all these things. Okay. Even fungi shows asexual reproduction, but what type of asexual reproduction, I'll tell you that. Okay. So as of now, just understand that simple organism can do this thing, binary fission. Okay. Now, first example of binary fission is amoeba. You know amoeba is there, it can divide its body into two, that is known as daughter amoebae. Okay. Now, the type of binary fission that they are showing is simple binary fission. That means irregular binary fission is happening. You can cut them from any side. From any side, you want to cut them from this side, you can cut from them this side. If it is getting cut from this side, still they do not have a plane to be cut into, divided into two parts. Okay. So division can occur through any plane. Division can occur through any plane, which is why it is known as irregular binary fission. They have a very irregular body, and this is a simple binary fission. You do not have to waste too much amount of time thinking about what plane you have to cut from, and the example is what? Amoeba. So the first example of binary fission is what? Amoeba. What type of fission it shows? Irregular binary fission. Think that it is just irregular in shape. Okay, or it is known as simple binary fission. Going ahead, what do we have? Longitudinal binary fission. It's very important for you to know the example, that is leishmania. So leishmania, it looks like this, okay, and it causes a disease that is known as Kala Azar. Please remember it. Kala Azar. Okay, Kala Azar. So over here you can see that they have their flagella and everything. Over there you can, this is how you can differentiate between leishmania. Okay, and it shows longitudinal binary fission. Here also binary fission is done. Okay, the organism is divided into two, but it is doing through longitudinal axis. It is going to get cut like this. This is longitudinal axis, and now there will be two separate organisms. So over here Euglena is also an example, Vorticella is also example, but if you can remember Euglena and leishmania, it will be really good, because leishmania obviously cannot forget, this came in the previous year also. Okay, this came in the previous year as well. So this is longitudinal fission, okay, which is a binary fission which is shown by leishmania that causes Kala Azar. Going ahead, we have transverse binary fission, where it is going to, so as of now, first one was irregular, where it was getting cut through any angle. Over here in longitudinal, it was get the longitudinal axis. Now over here transverse fission is happening. So what do you mean by transverse fission? Basically they are just going to get cut like this from the middle, and this is the example is what? Paramecium. Will you be able to remember it? They show transverse fission. So binary fission is shown by amoeba, leishmania, paramecium. Okay. Now there is one more thing, oblique binary fission, not very important, but you can know it. This is known as Serraceum. Okay, the name of this organism is Serraceum, and it cuts themselves through oblique angle. That's all. Okay, like parallel angle. That's all, and they give rise to two different individuals. It's okay if you do not remember this. If it's very good if you remember the type of binary fission: oblique binary fission, transverse binary fission, longitudinal binary fission, and then what? Simple binary fission. Examples are very much important. Going ahead, keep in mind, okay, there's something about them that you have to keep in mind. What is that something? In binary fission, the parent body as a whole forms the reproductive unit and disappears after its division into daughter amoeba. So if there is an amoeba, it divides into two. Can I search for the mother amoeba that was there? No, because it itself is a reproductive unit and it is going to divide into two. So basically, can I say that this organism is immortal? Because it's not dying, it's going to live in the form of the daughter, right? This particular organisms that shows what? Binary fission. Basically they are said to be immortal because they are just dividing their body and giving it to the next generation. That's all. So they are said to be immortal, and the parent does not die and continues to live in the form of the daughter cells. Yeah. Going ahead, multiple fission, second type of fission. So in fission was what? Division of the body of organism into two or more. Now on that first one was binary fission. Under binary fission we learned all this thing. Now we are talking about multiple fission. Okay, what happens in multiple fission? Obviously by the term multiple, you understand, it might be giving rise to multiple organisms, right? So obviously exactly same thing happens. The example of this is very much important. It is what? Plasmodium. Plasmodium is the one that causes malaria, children. So Plasmodium is the one that causes malaria. So mosquito is going to carry this Plasmodium thing only, okay, which is why we say that that particular mosquito is causing what? Malaria. Okay, so basically what happens over here, they form a cyst, and inside they have their nucleus and everything. After that they form a cyst and the nucleus continues to divide. The nucleus, what happens, children? For example, I am going to make a separate slide for it so that you understand things better. So just imagine that this is the organism with the nucleus. Okay? Ayyo, sorry, I made an amoeba instead. Wait. So this is an organism with the nucleus. What will happen? Slowly, the nucleus keeps on dividing. Okay? The nucleus will keep on dividing and they will have their own cytoplasm as well. And the structure will be covered by something that is known as cyst that protects them, Slowly, when favorable conditions arrive, this will burst open and the nucleus along with the cytoplasm, it comes out, and now tada, we have so many Plasmodium there. Okay, this is known as multiple fission. So from a single organism you are giving rise to so many organisms, which is why it is known as multiple fission. Now let's see about them. So some unicellular organisms divide into many daughter cells simultaneously by multiple fission. Example is Plasmodium. This multinucleated body divides into as many parts as a number of daughter nuclei and forms many daughter individuals. This type of fission, where many individuals arrive from a single parent, what do you call it? Multiple fission. Okay, it is shown by Plasmodium, I am telling you again. Now there is a question that usually comes, what is the difference between binary and multiple fission? Let's see. Binary fission, at the end you get 2 daughter individuals, whereas over here you get more than 2 daughter individuals. Now binary fission occurs usually during favorable conditions. For example, an amoeba in its favorable conditions likes to undergo what? Binary fission. Whereas when you talk about multiple fission, okay, for Plasmodium, they undergo multiple fission during favorable condition, but amoeba is also going to undergo multiple fission. But it happens only during unfavorable conditions. So whenever you write about amoeba, please write that during favorable condition they are going to undergo binary fission, but during unfavorable condition they are going to undergo what? Multiple fission. That's a very rare case. Okay, so for Plasmodium it is favorable, but for amoeba it becomes unfavorable. Now nucleus of the parent cell divides only once. You know that in the case of amoeba it was dividing the nucleus only once and then it was dividing into 2, that's all. So there was nuclear division only once, it was given to both of the daughter amoeba and that's all, right? But in the case of multiple fission, nucleus of the parent cell undergoes repeated division to form number of daughter nuclei. That's why there were so many nuclei. And what happened to the cytoplasm? Here in this case, cytoplasm also divides after the nuclear division. So just after the nuclear division, the cytoplasm also divides and it was given to the daughter amoeba. But over here, cytoplasm does not divide after every nuclear division. So first thing that happens is nuclear division, nucleus gets divided, and then as I said, the cytoplasm divides and now covers the whole organism. Okay? Whole nucleus. So cytoplasm does not divide after every nuclear division because there are so many nuclear division. So cytoplasm division happens later on. Okay, after the whole nuclear division is done, after that the cytoplasm is surrounded, nucleus is surrounded by cytoplasm. Okay. Now no part of the parent body is left unused. So as you know, they are immortal, they are just giving off to the next offspring that they are having. So nothing is left behind. But when you talk about multiple fission, after they are giving out, just a second, after they are producing all the, after the cyst is broken down, what happens? There will be some amount of residual cytoplasm that will be left behind. Rest everything will be around the nucleus. Okay, so there will be some amount, some part of the residual cytoplasm that leaves behind. Now, example, amoeba paramecium. Example, Plasmodium, majorly. Amoeba only then during unfavorable condition. So you can just remember Plasmodium, it's a very big thing if you remember that as well. Okay. Going ahead, what do we have, children? Next type of asexual reproduction, what is it, children? It is fragmentation. Now this is not there in your NCERT, but you have to know about it, okay? So it is the process of breaking up of a body of an organism into 2 or more parts known as fragments. So basically the whole, for example, this is an organism, it is not dividing and giving rise to just 2 organisms like this, no. the body is getting fragmented, and now this particular fragment is now going to make a whole organism. It's going to complete itself. It's going to complete itself. This is known as what? Fragmentation, where it is getting fragmented and then it completes itself. Okay. Now this process where the whole new part is coming, it is known as regeneration. Now that is given in your NCERT. It is given in your NCERT that when there are missed parts, they get regenerated, and it is not a type of reproduction. So people confuse it for reproduction. No, fragmentation, it's a type of reproduction, and the extension that is happening, it is known as regeneration. You're regaining the lost parts. Okay. The most common example of fragmentation is Spirogyra, which you can see over here. Spirogyra, which is an algae. You can see in the ponds and things like that with the help of microscope. Okay. So they are long fragment things like that, ribbon shaped things like that, which cuts it off and then regenerates it. Okay. Now if you want to see the example of regeneration, okay, which is given in your NCERT, it's about Planaria and Hydra. This is Planaria, children, it's a flatworm. Okay, this is Planaria and it's a flatworm. Planaria. So over here, Planaria is there, it divided into two, basically three, and now you have three different parts. From three different parts, there will be a whole new organism that will be arising, and this process is known as what? Regeneration. So regeneration is the process of renewal or restoration of any lost part. Okay, and it happens in Hydra as well as Planaria. Now is this their mode of reproduction? No. So during unfavorable condition, by chance, if it gets cut like this, that's when they regenerate like this. It's not like they reproduce like this. Okay, so regeneration is an option that they have during unfavorable condition, that's all. They do not reproduce like this. Okay, because Hydra, this thing that you are going to see over here, Hydra reproduces with the help of budding. This is Hydra and it reproduces with the help of budding. So this is just a survival mechanism. So if it got cut, then obviously from this part you can get a whole new part, from this part also you can get a whole new part, and now we have tada, two new Hydra. So this is known as regeneration, but what is actually known as fragmentation. So Spirogyra, they show fragmentation. If you are not able to remember, it's fine, but please remember Hydra and Planaria, which does regeneration, the regaining of the lost part. Okay, the process of renewal of the lost part is known as regeneration. It's not a type of reproduction. Example is Planaria, and the second example is Hydra. Now let's see, okay, one more question. Can you think of reasons why more complex organisms cannot give rise to new individuals through regeneration? Because we are complex organism. We have cells. These cells are going to form tissues. These tissues are going to form organs, and organs are going to form organ system, which are interdependent on each other. Now, if you cut one part, obviously you are losing the interdependency. Can the other part grow? No. So complex organism obviously cannot grow like that. Okay, because we have high degree of organization, which is very much missing in what? Simple organisms. Now choose the organism which does not reproduce through fission. Tell me, it is Plasmodium, Hydra, amoeba, bacteria. So amoeba example we saw, bacteria example we saw, Plasmodium we saw, that all of them basically do fission because they are very simple. Hydra, it becomes complicated organism. It's a very complex organism which comes under the Animalia category. Even though they are with Chutku, they come under the Animalia category. They are multicellular. Okay, so they are not going to reproduce by fission. Fission is for pakka unicellular organism. Okay, so this is the correct answer, which is not the one that produces through fission. Now, talking about Hydra, this is how they actually reproduce asexually. They show sexual reproduction as well, but this is how they reproduce asexually often. So that strategy, regeneration, was just their strategy of survival, that's all. So what happens usually in Hydra, they do budding children. Okay, they form small buds around them, and these buds basically grow, and then later they detach. And then later what happens? They detach. So few multicellular organisms like Hydra produce small buds. The buds develop as an outgrowth due to repeated cell division at one specific site. So if this is an Hydra, basically it forms a bud due to cell division that is going to happen over here. Slowly this bud is going to increase its size and form another Hydra over here. These buds develop into tiny individuals, and when fully mature, detaches from the parent body, as you can see over here. and then they become a new independent individual. Organisms such as Hydra use regenerative cells or stem cells for reproduction in the process of budding. So if stem cells are not there, they won't be able to make a whole new organism like this. So this areas from where they are reproducing, they are forming the bud, as you can see over here. It will be rich in stem cells or regenerative cells, which has the power to continuously divide and form a whole new organism just like them. Okay. So that is one thing. So budding is shown by what, children? Hydra. Please remember the examples and the methods. Okay. So again, one more example for budding, we have yeast. And yeast, as you can see over here, they are also forming small buds. But the difference between yeast and Hydra is that yeast is unicellular organism, whereas Hydra is a multicellular organism. It's made up of multiple cells. Okay, but when you talk about yeast, it is just made up of one cell, and it's a fungus. Yeast is what? A fungus. And one more division, when they do budding, they make a chain of buds, children. They make a chain of buds which then later detaches. Okay. So basically, budding is also observed in yeast. Yeast is unicellular organism, that is a fungus. A small protuberance outgrowth appears on upper part of an adult cell. This gradually grows in size. From this newly budded cell, another bud appears at the tip. This process continues for 3 to 4 times, resulting in a chain of buds which grow into yeast cells later on. So as you can see over here and here. Okay, so for budding, we have 2 different examples, yeast as well as Hydra. Going ahead, spore formation. This is something else now. Now, spore formation is shown by another type of fungus, the bread mold. Okay, the bread mold, or what do you call it, children? Rhizopus. So just imagine, if you're not able to remember its name, it's going to rise and form a pus. So this is the pus, and pus usually it's a blob shaped thing, right? So they also have a blob shaped thing over here. Okay, so what exactly happens in them and how they are formed and everything, let me tell you. So basically, this whole structure arises when one spore comes and sits on the bread. Now this unstable condition, it's a very moist area, they will start forming the whole thing like this. Now I will explain you the different parts. You have to remember the labelings. It has come in the exam before as well. Okay, just a second, children. Yeah, so we were talking about rhizopus and I want to talk about its structure. So basically, these things that you see over here, okay, hyphae, or what say sporangium, spore, sporangiophore, you have to know the name of them. So basically, hyphae is the one that comes together and forms the stem sort of, this root sort of structure. Okay, and together when they come, you call it something like mycelium. Mycelium. Okay, so hyphae is the one that comes together to form root-like structures which are known as rhizoid. So these root-like structures which are formed of hyphae, they are known as what? Rhizoid. Now the hyphae, they come together to form what? Mycelium, and all this mycelium together, when they form a stem-like structure, what do you call the stem-like structure as? Sporangiophore. Okay, now at the top of the sporangiophore, there will be a very swollen structure like this. What do you call it? Sporangium. And inside sporangium, what will be there? Spores. These spores will be released sometime and they will sit like that until a favorable condition arises. Now next time when there is something very moist situation, they will again form some whole new thing like this, and their reproduction cycle goes on. Okay, so for making you remember things, I can draw it for you, but you have to understand the root sort of structures which are being formed. What do you call them, children? Rhizoid. Rhizoid. And what are they made up of? They are made up of hyphae. They are made up of hyphae. Now the hyphae only, they form a stem-like structure. When hyphae, they come together, they form a mycelium. And together the stem-like structure, what do you call it? Sporangiophore. Sporangiophore. Okay. At the top of the sporangiophore, there will be a knob-like structure which is known as sporangium. And inside the sporangium, what do you have? You have spores, which has cyst around it. So if this is a spore, it will have a cyst around it which will let it survive during unfavorable condition. Now you think wind has come or a tsunami has come, whatever has come, this particular spore will be able to survive because of this particular cyst which is there. Okay, now when favorable conditions arise, it will come out of the cyst, okay, and then form a whole new organism like this. Okay, you have to remember the labelings, very, very, very important. Now let's read it. So spores are minute, single-celled, thin or thick-walled propagules. Propagules as in they are going to give rise to some other, what's a new whole thing. Okay. Now released from the parent body from the tiny blob on a stick. They have mentioned like this blob on a stick. The stick is sporangiform and the blob is this thing, known as sporangium, present at the top of the stalk-like structures called mycelium. So why they have called it as mycelium? As I said, the hyphae, when they come together, you call it mycelium. But the stem-like structure, actually you have a name, that is sporangiophore. So you can remember mycelium as well. Mycelium, basically they are forming sporangiophore over here, which instead is formed of many thread-like structures. What do you call these thread-like structures, which are going to form this, everything? It is known as hyphae. Generally, spores are dispersive, as in they can disperse around in nature and are able to withstand unfavorable conditions, which is why they are very, very important. Okay, environmental conditions such as dryness, extreme heat or cold. Now, this is the question that I was talking about, came in your boards. In bread mold, the structures labeled as A and B respectively are. Tell me in the comment section or in the chat box, what do you call them? What do you call them? The A and B. B is what, children? Sporangium. A is what it is made up of. Basically, if you thought of rhizoid, okay, if you thought of rhizoid, basically rhizoid is also made up of hyphae. So A is hyphae, B is sporangium. This is your option, that is C. If you got it correct, give a big tap to your back. Yeah. Now going ahead, what do we have? How will an organism be benefited if it reproduces through spores? I just told you as of now itself that basically spores can be can live around in any condition. During unfavorable condition it can survive, which is why these organisms will be benefited. They can continue their species, okay, even during unfavorable condition, because at the end of unfavorable condition, whenever favorable condition arises, the spores will be coming out of the cyst and giving rise to a whole new organism again. Okay, so you can read out the answer as well later on if you download the PDF. Okay, now we spoke about all the different type of asexual reproduction in other organisms, and I'll just sum this up. First is fission that we studied. In that we had binary and we have multiple fission, okay, and then we spoke about what, children? We spoke about what was it? Even I forgot. Fragmentation. We spoke about fragmentation as well, okay. In fragmentation, again regeneration has to happen, otherwise things does not work. Yeah. Now after that we spoke about budding, and budding was found in hydra and yeast. Okay, after that we spoke about this thing that we just studied, that is spore formation in fungus or bread mold. Spore formation. Fission, the basic example, the most important example is amoeba for binary, and leishmania as well. Leishmania, euglena and all of them. Okay, leishmania is the one that causes Kala Azar. And multiple fission, the example that you need to remember is plasmodium. They give rise to multiple organism. Regeneration, the example that you need to remember is planaria and hydra, since there in your NCERT textbook. Okay. And spore formation, example is rhizopus, or what do you call it? The bread mold, the same things that you see on the bread. Okay. Now we are going to talk about what? Plants, children. Okay, now asexual reproduction, when it happens in plants, you give a name to it. What is it known as? It is known as vegetative propagation. Okay, when we say that it's in vegetative state, that means it is happening from something that was not a reproductive part. Okay, for example, in plants, flower is the reproductive unit. With the help of flowers only, reproduction happens. You'll get to see that also. Okay, but over here, the reproduction is happening through other parts which are not reproductive. And you call these parts, you have a specific name for them, you call it somatic parts. Okay, you call it somatic plant parts. Now, somatic plant parts are stem, leaf, root. Have you seen things arising from the root or leaf or things like that? Have you seen a new plant arising from what, a leaf? Okay, you will be seeing all of that over here in the case of vegetative propagation. So again, I am telling you, vegetative propagation is the asexual reproduction in the case of plants. Now, there is no involvement of seeds. If there is involvement of seeds, then it is sexual reproduction, not asexual reproduction. Now, there are two types of vegetative propagation. One is natural, in which you will get to know. Okay, so one is natural and the other one is artificial. Let's see natural first. Oh, but before that, let's see significance of vegetative propagation. I think we should be studying about it after we complete natural and the artificial one. You will get to understand the significance in a better way then. So, natural vegetative propagation is without the interference of a human, that is me. If a plant grows naturally through vegetative parts, then it is known as natural vegetative propagation. As in, it is not growing with the help of the flowers or things like that. It is growing with the help of the vegetative parts. For example, if you see over here, there is a plant which has a leaf and it is going to form new plants. This particular leaf has the capacity to form a new plant. What is the example? What is the name of this particular plant that you are seeing over here? It is known as bryophyllum. It is known as bryophyllum, children, and over here you can find these buds which you call as adventitious buds. Adventitious buds. Why do you call it adventitious buds? Whenever buds are arising from somewhere else apart from the place it has to arise, that is, it usually arises at the stem node and things like that, right? Now, if it is arising at the tip of the leaf, at the notches of the leaf, which is why you call it adventitious buds. Now, that is example of bryophyllum. This name is very important. Now, what happens is that these buds, after growing some time, they will fall down on the ground, and if it's favorable, it will grow there. So basically, the leaf is giving rise to a new individual. That is why it is known as vegetative propagation. And are we doing something here? No. So there is no interference of human being, which is why it is known as natural vegetative propagation. Second thing, that is the example of leaf. Now, when you talk about potato, you have seen that potato have eyes. These things that you see over here, you call it the eye of potato, which is going to give rise to what? Basically, these are also buds. And these buds are going to give rise to a whole new plant. Now, potato basically is a stem tuber. Okay, what is it? Basically, it is a stem tuber. So, your stem is enlarging. Your underground stem which is there, it is not a root or something like that. It is a stem tuber. Your underground part of the stem is enlarging. Okay, it is storing all these important things, and it is going to give rise to eyes, basically buds, and these buds are going to give rise to a whole new plant. So again, a stem is giving rise to a whole new plant rather than the seed or something like that. So usually for planting or a different plant, what do you need? You need seed, right? But do you see any requirement of seed over here? No. If you put this particular part of the potato under the ground, it will grow into a new plant. Again, it's naturally happening. It's a stem tuber. Okay. Next thing, over here you see something like this, which is known as sweet potato. What is it, children? It is sweet potato. Now, what happens in sweet potato? Again, these are the roots. So the roots, which looks like this, they enlarged and they are storing something and they are giving rise to new plants. This is what? Sweet potato. Basically, the roots of the sweet potato. And now over here you can see again, new plants are arising. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. Fine. So leaf, stem tuber, and this is what? Root tuber, and all of them, they are occurring naturally through vegetative plant parts. Now, artificial vegetative propagation is when, with the interference of human being, if a plant grows, then it is known as artificial vegetative propagation. Let's see the example. So basically, rose and all, you might have seen the people from one rose plant, they cut a part of it and they grow another rose plant. Okay, how they are able to do that? With the help of cutting. Cutting is a procedure where you cut a portion of the plant part which has some bud over here, which has some bud such that it can give rise to a whole new plant. If without bud you are going, it becomes difficult. You need a part that has the cells that could give rise to a whole new plant. Okay, so the part that has the bud is taken off, and then this particular part is dipped in a rooting hormone, so that roots can be formed easily. After dipping in the rooting hormone, it is put in the soil such that it grows easily. So cutting is a method used for vegetative propagation where the vegetative parts of the plant of the stem is cut and buried in the soil. The part which is used in cutting has the nodes, as I said, which have the axillary buds. Axillary buds as in the natural buds that occurs. Adventitious as in somewhere else if it is occurring, it is known as adventitious. So axillary buds are there towards the sides which help in propagation. It's not like axillary is also meant for the position. Okay, for the position of buds. So there is apical buds, axillary buds towards the sides. Anyways, the buds, the nodes that has buds, okay, that is being taken. Example of this is rose and sugarcane. So rose and sugarcane can be vegetatively propagated with the help of cutting. So are you using seeds over here? No. You're using a plant part which is having the node and you're dipping it in the rooting hormones as that root arises. Then you're putting in what? The soil. That's all. Okay. Example is what? Rose and sugarcane. Going ahead, we have grafting. What happens in grafting, children? You have a plant, okay? Now what you're doing, you have one plant and you are making a V-shaped incision in that, okay? You are making a V-shaped incision in that. For example, this is a plant part. I'm making a V-shaped incision in there, okay? And then I'm taking another plant part and towards its end, also I would be having something like this, such that this particular part can enter into the hole of this particular part, and together they will slowly take some time to combine their xylem and phloem, and they could easily transport all this food and water throughout as a single plant. So what is the use of doing this? Basically, you are getting two different varieties of one particular thing in one particular plant. For example, there is Shimla apple, there is Kashmiri apple, things like that, different varieties of apple. So in the lower region, you put something else. Okay, there will be some type of apple. The upper part of the same plant will be producing some other type of, what say, apple. Okay, so grafting is an act of placing a portion of one plant, bud or scion. What do you call it? Scion. Okay, and into or on a stem, root or a branch of another in such a way that the union will be formed and the partners will continue to grow. How can you remember scion and stalk? Basically, scion is on something. Okay, that's how you can remember it. Scion is always on something. So the upper part of the plant which has to be put, it is known as scion, and the lower part will be known as what? Stalk. And stalk should be having very good roots. Stalk should be having very good roots. Okay. Now, the part of the combination that provides the root is known as stalk, as I said. The added piece is known as scion. This is known as grafting, children. Okay, and then the grafting tape is put such that it joins both of the xylem and phloem and they can easily live together. Okay, so that is grafting. Coming again, we have layering. What do you mean by layering? So basically, again, there will be plants which has long stems and nodes over there, okay, or buds over there in them. So you pull the stem, you put it inside the soil, you cover it up such that the nodes and everything gets enough amount of things. It can form a root now and then a whole plant later on. This is seen in jasmine as well, and strawberry. Strawberry also show this particular type of thing. If you keep two pots together, they will definitely show this thing. So one part of the stem will go to the other pot, they will grow there and they will give rise to a whole new strawberry plant as well. Okay, so layering is a method of asexual propagation in which a stem is made to produce roots while still attached to the parent plant. So you have to remember this. In the case of layering, initially the parent plant and this particular plant will be together. Later on, when you see that the whole plant is giving rise to a new plant, you can cut it off. Okay. So the parent plant provides the new plant with water and nutrients while the roots are forming. After the roots and everything are formed, it's okay, you can cut it off slowly. This is what, children? This is layering. So we saw in artificial, we have cutting, grafting and layering. In natural, we have all these things. You can remember the example of bryophyllum and potato and sweet potato as well. Okay. Okay. Now, tissue culture. Okay, what do you mean by tissue culture? There is one more thing, that is tissue culture, where you are taking a part of the plant which has the ability to divide itself and form a whole new plant. So you take a part of the bud or anything like that, you cut it, okay, you cut it and then you put it in a medium, okay, rich in nutrients, such that the cells will now grow, into a tissue, and this is known as what, children? This is known as a callus. This grown thing that you see, a bunch of cells, you call it callus. Now callus is there. If you put the callus in a system that is containing the rooting hormone, it will slowly form what, children? Roots. Then you put some in something that has the shooting hormone. So basically it will form the shoot, that is the upper part of the plant, and then later you take the plantlets, small plantlets, and then put it in the soil where they can grow very easily. Okay, so you took one part of the plant, you call this one part of the plant as X plant. So it's not a part of the plant now it's X plant. Okay, you put it in a medium that contains all the nutrients such that these particular parts or the cells can divide and form something which is known as callus. This callus is put now in a rooting hormone, in a medium that contains the rooting hormone such that it forms the roots. Okay, and then shooting hormone such that it forms the shoot, and then a plant is formed. The small plantlets are nurtured and then they are put in the soil so that they can grow into a new plant. This is known as tissue culture because we are taking a part of the plant, the tissues of the plant, for giving out whole new plantlets. Okay, now this is given in a yellow box or white box in there in your NCERT, so you have to read it. A technique of developing new plants from a cell or tissue in a nutrient medium under aseptic condition. Please make sure of that. It is aseptic. If there is some amount of microorganisms over there, will it grow properly? No. The cells or tissue is placed in a nutrient medium where it forms a mass of cell known as what? Callus. This callus is then transferred to another nutrient medium where it differentiates and forms a new plant. That's all about tissue culture, and with this we are completing asexual reproduction, children. And over here I gave you homework if you remember. Okay, I gave you homework if you remember. Let's see. Let's try to find the answers for the same. The part of the human brain which controls muscular coordination, posture, everything. As I said, posture is like this. We have to maintain straight. So what has two L's like this? It is cerebellum, so it will be cerebellum. A doctor advised a person to take an injection of insulin. Why does a person need to take an injection of insulin? Whenever the glucose is too high, you need to convert the glucose to what? Glycogen. And this is done with the help of what? What, children? Insulin. Okay. So basically when pancreas are not secreting enough amount of insulin, that's when the doctor is saying that you have to take the shots of it. Now, chemical coordination is seen in both plants and animals. Agree? Yes, hormones are being produced. So obviously it is seen. Assertion is true. What about reason? Plant hormones control directional growth, whereas in animals growth is never seen in one direction only. It's not like that. Animals definitely show in one direction. Your hand will be growing like this rather than this. Right? Even plant hormones control directional and non-directional growth as well. So your reason becomes false. Okay. Going ahead, name the parts of the nervous system which are involved in the following activities. Maintaining body posture, it is cerebellum. Salivation, is it involuntary or voluntary, children? It is involuntary, and involuntary things are maintained by what? Medulla. Hunger, H for hunger and H for hypothalamus. Check your answers, okay? Answering a question. While this, I am using my cerebrum because cerebrum is the thinking part of the brain. So, okay. List 3 points of differences between nervous and hormonal mechanisms. So, nervous system obviously will be fast, whereas hormonal system will be slow. Okay, in nervous system basically you are taking help of what? Chemicals, whereas hormones are basically chemicals itself. They are responsible for coordination. Okay, so you can list down all these points in your answers. I'm just telling you because obviously we have to cover the other part. So over here I won't be able to explain everything to you, but yes you can. I hope you checked your answers somewhere. Now, how are auxins related with bending of a plant shoot towards unidirectional light? I told you previously also, you have to make the diagram of everything. You have to make the diagram of the plant part that basically sun is there, auxin is uniformly distributed. Later it moves towards one side, and if it's moving towards one side, it will cause what? Cell elongation only towards one particular side, which causes the bending. With the diagram you have to explain, children. Okay. Let's start sexual reproduction in flowering plants, and before that I want you to take a small break. Okay, take a small break, and I will also take a small break, and I'll come in for talking about sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Okay, now children, when I say that there is a break, you can pause the video and take the break. Obviously I am recording, so it will be going on. Take your break and come fast, and please be happy. Do not be stressful while studying. I am teaching for you, so I want you to be happy. Okay. Now, what happens in sexual reproduction, children? It's common for all, for plants as well as animals. Basically, in sexual reproduction, the new individuals are formed when male and the female gamete, they fuse. Okay, so we have a male gamete and the female gamete, it has to fuse. And what do you call this process as? You call this process as fertilization, which is written over there. Okay, second thing, sexual reproduction involves combining genetic material. We know that the DNA is basically combined. Genetic material is carried by the gametes or the germ cells. So these cells, these are also cells. The gametes that you see, they are also cells. They also have the DNA, and these are the ones that carry the DNA from the parents. Okay, and they are the only cells that have half the amount of genetic material because of the process known as meiosis, which is a reductional division, and it's a very important question. So this is the one parent, this is one parent, this is another parent. 46 number of chromosomes are there normally. Now when you combine, it will be what? 92 number of chromosomes. Is it okay? No. Double the amount of DNA, double the amount of proteins, not okay. We want specific amount of DNA and specific amount of proteins. So over here, they undergo, these cells, okay, they undergo a process which is reductional division. It is going to reduce the number of what? Reduce the amount of DNA, number of chromosomes. Okay. So what happens over here in reductional division? It is also known as meiosis. It's a very important question. Which is that division where it becomes half the number of chromosome? It is reductional division, and over here the number of chromosome will be 23, and together 46. Tada! Everything is happy. You can take a screenshot of this because you won't find this in the PDF. Yeah. Now, so yes, when two such germ cells carrying half the amount of genetic material fuse, they re-establish the amount of genetic material that the parents contain, that is 46 number of chromosome. So in simple language, half plus half is equals to 1, that is zygote. Do not write this in your exam. Now there are important facts as well which you need to know. What happens when the gametes fuse? They form, as I said, something that is known as zygote. And the zygote which is formed, no children, it is unicellular. It is just made up of one cell. Now when the zygote divides into two, what does it form? It forms an embryo. Okay, does the germ cells or gametes look the same? They do not look the same. They are entirely different. One will be storing all the food and everything. That's why it's non-motile. So in the human's case, the ovum is non-motile, whereas the sperm, it is just responsible for movement, for motility, and that will be obviously motile. Now, what if the gametes didn't have the number of chromosome or the genetic material? Obviously, if they are not having the number of chromosome, then there will be double amount of genetic material, double amount of what, say, proteins as well. Yeah. How sexual reproduction bring variation? You know that during during DNA copying, at this point of time there will be so many errors, which is why we have what? Variation. Apart from that, there will be what? Parents who are involved with two different set of DNAs, which is why we have more amount of variation. So errors and all could be corrected by our body. That is there, okay. We have error checking mechanism which is getting corrected as well. But the other part, that is fusion of two different genetic material, that is a major reason for variation in the case of sexual reproduction. Yeah. What are the male and the female reproductive parts of the plant? Let's see. So the female reproductive part of the plant is known as carpel or pistil, or it is also known as what? Gynoecium, children. The scientific term is gynoecium, and this is the thing that I was talking about. The carpel consists of stigma. Now stigma is what, children? The landing surface. So basically pollen is the one that carries the male gamete, and pollen has to land on the stigma, this particular area. So it has to be a sticky structure. So it's a sticky knob or head of the pistil that receives pollen grain and germinates the pollen. Style. What is style? This particular portion that you see over here, this is style, the long stalk-like structure. So it is a stalk in the pistil that supports the stigma and connects it to what? The next structure, which is our ovary. Okay, so it aids in fertilization as it allows pollen to grow a pollen tube to the ovary. So there the pollen is there, it has to reach the ovary because ovary has the female gamete. So over here there is a tube that is being formed, which is known as what, children? Pollen tube. So inside the style only this particular tube is formed. Okay. Now ovary is there, it is the enlarged basal portion of the pistil over here as you see, and it contains the ovules. It contains what, children? Ovules. And the ovules in turn carries what? The egg or the female gamete. So you have to remember that ovary has ovule, and ovule is the one that carries the female gamete, that is the egg. Okay, done. Now going ahead, note ovule contain the female gamete. Ovule itself is in the female gamete. Okay, in future this ovary becomes the fruit. That is also important. Now in future what happens, children? Okay, see over here. So you have stigma, then you have style, and then you have ovary, which is having the ovule, right? Agree? So basically after the pollen has come, it forms a pollen tube, and the pollen will be traveling down. It will go to this particular area, that is the ovule, which has the female gamete, right? So when fusion happens, after fertilization has happened, what will happen? This particular thing that you see over here, that is the ovary, it will become the fruit that you eat. The ovule, it will become the seed, which is why we say that seed has the ability to give rise to a whole organism. Why? Because this seed was the place where the female gamete was there and the male gamete came and fused. So now you have the zygote inside, or basically the embryo inside the seed. So ovary, ovule, and then the zygote is there. Okay, so this is about that. Carpel and pistil is the name. It's the same thing. Gynoecium is the actual name. Gynecologist is for female, so you can remember gynoecium. Okay, now going ahead, this is what the stamen, this particular structure that you see over here, these are known as what? Stamen. Now stamen, it is also known as androecium. Okay, and what does it consist of? It consists of anther. So what is anther, children? This particular portion that you see over here, the lobed structure, that is anther. Okay, it is bilobed. It has two lobes. It looks like this. Okay, it has bilobed. It is bilobed upper part of the stamen that contains the pollen grains. Now this is where pollen grains are there. Okay, now pollen grains, are they the male gamete? No. Here pollen grains will be containing what, children? The male gamete. Similar to that, ovary, ovule, and the female gamete. Similar here, anther, pollen grains, and the male gametes. Filament is this particular structure, which is a stalk-like structure which attaches anther to the flower, which is over here. Please note, pollen grains contain the male gamete. Pollen grain itself is not the male gamete. In future, this powdery pollen grains lands on the stigma of the flower to form the pollen tube. Okay. Now, apart from that, what do we have? We have petals. Okay, this particular thing that you see over here, they are petals, and these are what? Sepals. Now, petals, when they come together, a bunch of them, what do you call it? You call it corolla. Sepals, when they come together, what do you call it? Calyx. So corolla is there inside, calyx is there outside. Done? Going ahead, what do we have? Okay, so now we know that a flower contains what, children? It contains stamen, it can contain pistil, carpel, calyx, and corolla. Calyx is the outermost layer that is made up of this, the sepals, right? Now, there's an important thing that is given in your NCERT, and what is that thing? Here, when a flower contains either carpel or stamen, that is only one, either androecium or gynoecium. This particular flower will be known as what? Unisexual. It is not containing both, it just has one. So the flower will be either having stamen or what? The carpel. Now this will be known as unisexual plant, because obviously there is only one sexual organ over there. Example is papaya and watermelon. PW. Now you can think of PW as anything, but yes. Now going ahead, on the other hand, if flower contains carpel and stamen, both of them, so what do you call it? Bisexual plant. It's a bisexual flower. Example of a bisexual flower, hibiscus and mustard. How can you remember it? H&M. You go to H&M for shopping, you can remember like that, okay, or whatever. So basically hibiscus and mustard is there, which has both the sexual organs, that is androecium and gynoecium in a flower, whereas there are unisexual plants which has just one in one particular flower. In other flower, they will be having other ones, okay, and that's how they fuse. So example is papaya and watermelon. Bisexual, so you in H&M you find bisexual clothes as well, which is common for male and the female. Everyone can wear it, so you can think like that. Okay. Now that's all. Going ahead, what do you mean by pollination? So the process of transfer and the deposition, the process of transfer and deposition of what, children? Pollen grains. From where? From the anther to the stigma, okay, is known as pollination. There are two main types of pollination. One is self and the other one is cross pollination. Okay, so over here you can see the picture when there is a single flower and they have both these sexual organs. From here the pollen grains can travel to the stigma, land it over there and do the whole process. This is known as self pollination. Okay, so it is the process of transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of either the same flower or another flower born on the same plant. Okay, so another flower, so either way, according to your NCERT, let's read it. So according to your NCERT, it's just the process of transfer of pollen grains from the anther or the stigma of the same flower. They have not mentioned this in your NCERT, so please do not learn that. So the same flower itself. Now what do you mean by cross pollination? Usually cross pollination means there are two different plants of the same species and both of them, they have different flowers, and from here to here, there the things are going. But according to NCERT, they have not mentioned that there are different plants. They have mentioned that there is from one flower to another flower. Okay, from one flower to another flower, they didn't mention if it's the same plant or different plant or anything like that. Usually it's a different plant. When it's the same plant, you call it self pollination. But as I said in the NCERT, it's not mentioned, so let's also learn it like that. When it's from one flower to another flower. Okay, so pollen grains from one flower goes to another flower, you call it what? Cross pollination. And when it's the same flower, you call it what? Self pollination. Done? Okay, so for cross pollination, obviously you need external agencies, which could be abiotic factors or biotic factors. Abiotic as in wind or water. Okay, there can be either wind or there can be either water, which could help in so abiotic is not living. Now there could be biotic factors as well. For example, insects, birds, bats, everything, they come under what? Biotic factors. Now cross pollination brings about genetic recombinations and produces variations in the offspring. Why did I say that? Because when it comes under two different plants, that's when. So as of now, according to NCERT, they have not mentioned this, so let's not learn it. Okay, can you do this? External agencies are required. Abiotic as in non-living factors, biotic as in living factors. What happens after pollination? So before going ahead with that, I want you to understand that inside the ovary, there are different type of cells. So over here, I'll zoom it in a bit. Yeah, there will be one cell over here, the middle cell that you see over here, this one. This is a female germ cell. Okay, so extending the, I'll extend the line and then I'll explain. So this particular cell over here, this is what? The female germ cell, and around it there will be two more cells which you call as what? Synergids. Okay, they are cells only, they are different, they are just there. Over here there are two nuclei, just nuclei, they have not formed cells, so two polar nuclei is there. And over here there will be another set of cells which you call as antibodal cells. So what happens in general, I tell you, a pollen grain landed over here, it forms a pollen tube, and a pollen will be having two male gametes. What is it having? Two male gametes, two male gametes, please not forget it. Okay, two male gametes comes, one fuses with the female germ cell, that is a female gamete, and this process is known as what? Fertilization, where a zygote is formed. But there is one more male gamete. What happens to it? The other male gamete goes and fuses with the two polar nuclei. Okay, which is why it is known as double fertilization. In a plant, double fertilization happens. Two times the male gamete is going to fuse over here. When this fusion happens, it is going to form the zygote. This zygote has the ability to form the embryo and a whole new plant. But what about this particular reaction that has happened? Basically, this fusion gives rise to endosperm. What is it? Endosperm. Endosperm is that something that would be giving nourishment, to the growing embryo. Okay, so to give nourishment to this particular part, the zygote that is formed, we have this thing. Okay, and since fertilization is happening twice, it is known as double fertilization. So I'll write it. First fertilization is happening between what? Male and the female gamete. Okay, second is happening between these two polar nuclei. Okay, second is happening between two polar nuclei. There's just nuclei with what? With the again the second male gamete. Since fusion is happening twice, you call this as double fertilization. Okay, what is the end result of this fusion of male and female gamete? The zygote. What is the end result of this? What is the end result of this? You get endosperm, and endosperm is basically nothing but that's something that would be providing nourishment to the zygote. Okay, so once the pollen grains is deposited on the suitable stigma, it gives rise to pollen tube, which is obviously going to reach the ovary. Okay, one male gamete fuses with the egg. The fusion of the male gamete with the female is known as fertilization and gives rise to zygote. The zygote repeatedly divides by mitotic division. So yeah, one more question. When the zygote has to divide into two cells, okay, will it again undergo reductional division? No. Here the number of cells, chromosomes should be same, because you are going to give rise to a whole organism, right? So all the cells should be having same number of chromosome, which is why this division is known as mitotic division. It is equational division. All of them will be having equal number of chromosome. Okay, now the other male gamete fuses with the two polar nuclei and forms endosperm. This process is known as triple fusion. That we don't need to study, but I'll tell you if you want. Okay, since okay, since there are already two nuclei over here and male gamete will also be having one nucleus, it's a cell, right? So three nuclei, that is why it is known as triple fusion, but we don't need to study it. Okay, and forms a triploid endosperm which nourishes the growing embryo. That is there. Now inside the embryo sac, as fertilization occurs, it is known as double fertilization. Okay, after fertilization, what will happen? The ovule develops a tough coat and is gradually converted into a seed. So ovule gets converted into seed. The ovary grows rapidly and ripens to form a fruit, as I already told. Meanwhile, the petals, sepals, everything falls off. And what happens to the seed? That is the ovule. Seed contains the further plant or embryo within it. Okay, which is this particular part. Now this process, okay, now after that, under suitable time, okay, when suitable time comes, it will give rise to what? Shoot and root, and this process is known as germination, where the part that will be giving rise to the shoot, what do you call it? Plumule. And the part that gives rise to the root, what do you call it? Radicle. What do you call it, children? Radicle. Fine. Does it work? Okay. How is the process of pollination different from fertilization? So pollination, how is different? Because it is the transfer of pollens from one part to the other part, that is pollen answer to the stigma. Fertilization means you are fusing things, right? And it occurs, okay, fertilization, it takes by natural and artificial means. Okay, it can be done artificially as well, whereas pollination, it takes place by various pollinating agents. Well, this can be also done as artificial form, but again, yeah, these points make sense. Okay, now you saw that basically in the seed there can be one cotyledon, as in one thing that provides the nourishment, the endosperm. Okay, you can say like that. So monocotyledons are the one which has one cotyledon. Okay, this is they have just one cotyledon. Okay, inside from this a new plant and everything will be coming. Over here they have two cotyledons, this and this. Okay, they are known as dicotyledons. The bean and everything, they have dicotyledons, and from there obviously a new plant will be coming around. This again is something extra. If you want to learn about it, you can learn it. And now it comes time for sexual reproduction in organisms, that is human beings as well. And you have the first question, children: is puberty and adolescence the same? Tell me, is puberty and adolescence the same? Are you in adolescence? Have you hit puberty yet? So let's see. Nope, it's not the same. First thing, adolescence is the period of transmission between childhood and adulthood. So the point where you are transitioning from child to an adult, this particular phase is known as adolescence. Now, puberty is what? A period that typically begins during late childhood or early adolescence. So now when you have now transitioned to an adolescent phase, from that point of onwards, whatever period begins, that period is known as what? Puberty. Okay, so this particular period, after you have become an adolescent, whatever period comes forward, this is known as what? Puberty. This is the period during which an organism will be attaining sexual maturity. You will be showing certain changes inside your body, and what are those changes? These changes are known as secondary sexual characteristics. Something that comes secondary. You are female and male by birth, right? Okay, or any other gender. Let's be gender free. Anyways, so basically over here, there is secondary sexual characteristics which appear later in your life. So these characteristics are visible when by the time you attain sexual maturity. So there are certain features which are common for both male as well as the female. First thing, thick hair growth in the pubic region and armpits. Okay, there will be thick hair growth which will be common for male and the female. Thin hair appears on the legs and the arms as well as on the face as well. So that is again common for male and the female. The skin frequently becomes oily and there might be occurrence of acne. So this happens to almost everyone who has hit puberty. There will be so much acne because our oil glands and everything is going to secrete a huge lot of things now because your hormones are really active. So will you be able to remember it? This is a very important thing. All these points that I am telling you. Thick hair growth is common for all in the pubic region and the armpits. Second thing, thin hair on your body and face. Okay, and then the skin, it becomes oily and also you get acne. Okay, this is the common features, common secondary sexual characteristics. When you talk about females in general, okay, when you just talk about females, the breast size, it begins to what? Increase. There will be darkening of skin of nipples at the tip of the breast. That also happen. Menstruation begins. You will be starting to menstruate. Your blood will be shut down every month. Deposition of fat in various body parts like thighs and hips. So there will be more deposition of fat over here. Your region which has the uterus and everything, that is a pelvic region, it becomes broadens because now your system is starting to work, right? Now you will be having high pitched voice as well, just like mine. So these are the secondary sexual characteristics in female. Breast size increases, there will be darkening of the nipples, and what basically menstruation begins, deposition of fat will be there in the thigh and the hip region, as well as there will be high pitched voice. Okay, going ahead, if you talk about men, there will be thick hair growth on the face and voice begins to crack and becomes deep. The body becomes more muscular. There will be enlargement of testis, scrotum and the penis, which is their external genital organs. Okay, basically penis is the external genital organ, all of them, they hold, basically they are responsible for sperm formation. So since it is working, it has started to work, there will be enlargement as well. So thick hair growth children, body becoming muscular and enlargement of testis is the secondary sexual characteristics for men. So you have to remember all these things, it is important. They ask you what are the secondary sexual characteristics. Well, this begins when you hit puberty. Okay, now phases of sexual reproduction. So there is pre-zygotic phase. What do you mean by pre-zygotic? Before zygote is formed, right? So there is a phase before zygote is formed, and with this I just want to stop for a second, okay? Okay, so let's move on to the phases of sexual reproduction. So over here you have pre-zygotic phase, you have zygotic phase, you have post-zygotic phase as well. What do you mean by that? You can understand by the terms. It's very easy. Pre-zygote as in before the formation of zygote. Zygotic phase as in when zygote is formed. Post-zygotic as in what happens after zygote is formed. Okay, so pre-zygotic, it is a gametic phase because at this phase the gametes are formed, children. Gamete formation, it happens in the pre-zygotic phase. Now in the case of male, since sperm is produced, you call this process as spermatogenesis. Genesis as in formation and spermato as in sperm. Now in the case of females, since ovum is the one that is being produced, you call this oogenesis because ovum is also known as oocyte. Okay, that is a female gamete, so it is known as oogenesis. Now zygotic phase is when the fusion happens, and this fusion itself is known as fertilization or syngamy. We studied about it. Now what happens in post-zygotic phase? Basically this particular zygote will undergo division, it forms an embryo. This embryo will also undergo structural changes, forms a fetus which is there, and it all arises from zygote. Isn't that very unique, right? So these are the three phases of sexual reproduction. It's not mentioned in your NCERT, but to make things clear, I explained it to you. Talking about the male reproductive system, which is obviously mentioned in your NCERT and we have to study it. So, what does it consist of? It consists of a pair of testes for sure, okay. that produce the male germ cell of sperms, and several secondary sex organs are there, such as ducts, accessory glands and mating organ. You will be studying about that as well. So testis is what? The primary sex organ, children. It is the primary sex organ. Why do I call it the primary sex organ? Because it does the primary function. What is the primary function? Obviously to produce what? Sperm, which is the male gamete. Now apart from this, they are also responsible for the production of hormones, the male hormones, which are known as androgens. Which are known as what, children? Androgens. And testosterone, which you always hear about, it is a male sex hormone. It's a type of androgen. So it is known as primary sex organ. Why? Because it produces sperm and also male hormones. Altogether the male hormones are known as what? Androgens. The major hormone is what? Testosterone. Okay. Now testes, where are they located? Testis is located, or the testes are located outside the abdominal cavity. So basically, if this is a human being, this is the leg region. Okay, oh sorry. Okay, so this particular area, okay, this particular area below your thoracic cavity, from below your heart, you call this abdominal cavity. Abdominal cavity. And the lowermost region is actually known as what? Pelvic region. So this is where your reproductive structures are located. But it is said that testis is outside the reproductive system. Outside the reproductive system. Why? Because it has to be protected. It has to be protected by the temperature. Because the testis' major role is to produce what, children? Sperm. And can the sperm be produced in the temperature which is there inside our body? No. They need lesser temperature. How much degree less should be there? It should be 2.5 degrees Celsius lower than the actual body temperature. And now this pouch in which the testis is located, you call this particular pouch as what? Scrotum. Again, I am telling you, why is it present outside the body, inside the scrotum? Because it needs 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lower, not higher, okay, lower than the normal body temperature for the formation of sperms. Now that is given in your NCERT. Now sperm is being formed. Sperm is being formed in the testis. It has to be taken to the penis, because penis is the copulatory organ. It is the mating organ. Now for that, for taking things down, you have a duct system. You have huge lot of ducts which basically carries the sperm which is made in the testis to what? The penis, which is over here. Okay, this duct system includes epididymis, vas deferens and everything. Okay, what does it consist of? Epididymis and vas deferens. I can explain it to you a bit. Let's try explaining it. I'll try explaining it. Okay, so this is the testis. Okay, the testis basically has structures like this, seminiferous tubules, testicular lobules, structure like that. Basically, where sperm is formed, the sperm is basically taken outside with the help of rete testis and things like that. And over here, they form a very coiled structure which is 6 meters long if it is uncoiled. This very coiled structure, tube-like structures which are there, it is known as epididymis. You will be studying this in your 12th grade. Okay. Now this epididymis is going to connect things, and this is what? Your vas deferens, which is going to carry the sperm which is made in the testis to what? Towards your penis. So over here there is urinary bladder which comes in between. There is what, children? There is urinary bladder. And obviously it is connected to the kidneys with the help of ureter. Okay, so what happens is that the vas deferens, they come from back, okay, and the vas deferens also receives something from a gland. This gland's name is written in your NCERT textbook. This gland's name is seminal vesicle. Seminal vesicle. This is a gland. These are ducts. These are what? Ducts. And there are not 2 of them, there are many of them inside also. These both of things that you see over here, they are what, children? They are ducts. What ducts? Accessory ducts, which are going to carry transport the sperm. Their sole function is to transport. Whereas when I talk about seminal vesicle, it is a gland. It is going to have some secretion which it would provide to the sperm that is coming. Okay, together they will open into the urethra, which is covered by this structure which is known as the mating organ, the penis. Okay, so basically this is the urethra which extends from the urinary bladder and goes downwards. And from here you are getting what? Basically the sperm. So sperm as well as the urine, it has a common passage. It has a common passage in males. And this common passage is known as what? Urethra, which opens with the help of urethral meatus. Fine. I hope you got that as well. Now this seminal vesicle, as I said, it is going to give out some secretion, and this secretion is rich in fructose. So fructose is a form of energy that you are giving to the sperm so that sperm can easily move. Then if you go around, there will be another gland which is over here, which surrounds the whole thing, such that inside it everything passes down. Okay, and this particular gland is known as prostate gland. Again mentioned in your NCERT, so you have to know. Prostate gland, this gives secretions like secretions like calcium, clotting enzymes and stuff like that, which basically again helps in the activation of the sperm, and also clotting enzyme so that it does not lose its energy moving around over here itself. It wants the sperm to not move over here but move when it enters the female genital tract. That is the use of what? Clotting enzymes. So they help in clotting. And Ca helps in activation as well as again motility and the maturation of the sperm. Okay, so that is done. I hope that is clear. So these are the ducts. Testis is the place where sperm formation takes place and male hormones are being produced. Okay, and then seminal vesicle and prostate glands are the glands which provide secretion to the sperm. Now these secretions together, what do you call them? You call it seminal plasma. These secretions, just a secretion is known as seminal plasma. Now when sperm is added to this secretion, the whole thing you call as what, children? Semen. Whole thing you call it as semen. You can take a screenshot of this. Again, I'll move aside because it won't be there. Yeah. Okay. And the mating organ is what? The penis. This is a side view of everything that is mentioned. Urethra is the common passage. Please remember it. Now, when you talk about female genital tract, you have these many things. Let's learn it one by one. Okay. So over here, ovaries are the ones which are known as the primary sex organs. Why again? Tell me. Because obviously they are going to form what? The gamete. And also they are going to produce hormones, the ovarian hormones, which is estrogen, progesterone and everything. Okay. And now the ovaries has to be carried, the sex organ, that is basically the ovaries, they are going to give out gametes, and this gametes, that is ovum, has to be carried. Okay. So basically who is responsible for carrying everything? It is the oviduct. What is it, children? It is the oviduct. Oviduct is divided into different things. This particular portion of the oviduct, the initial part, you call it as infundibulum. Okay. Another part, the next part is known as what? Ampulla. The next part is known as isthmus. So ampulla, isthmus and infundibulum is there. Okay, if it's there in your NCERT, we can remember it. I'm not able to recollect if it's there. Okay, somehow. So anyways, and there are finger-like projections which like move around our ovary and say that if you want to give out something, give out. I'll take it and carry it to the uterus, which is the next part. So basically this finger-like projection which is there at the end of infundibulum, you call it fimbriae. Now the story time. Okay, so ovary releases ovum. The ovum moves around. It goes and comes at this particular place and stops there. Okay, it says that sperm has to come over here. Now For sperm to come over here, obviously it has to take a huge passage. So for understanding that, you need to understand that after oviduct, we have a structure like this, which is known as what, children? It is known as the uterus. This is where, if fusion of gametes happened, if zygote is formed, the embryo will develop. This is where the embryo will develop. Now, going ahead, there is a flap-like thing present over here, which you call as what? Cervix. And this whole canal that you see over here, which thing, you call it the vagina. Now, during copulation, what happens, children? During copulation, penis is inserted into the female genital tract. The sperm is being released, okay? The sperm is being released and the sperm moves around and goes to the fallopian duct over here at the ampulla. That's why I told you, okay? At the ampullary region, it will fuse with the egg. It will fuse with the egg. Now, suppose fusion has taken place. Suppose fusion has taken place and now it has formed what, children? Zygote. Okay? This zygote will slowly divide and it will start forming an embryo. Okay? It will start forming an embryo and there comes a stage which is known as blastocyst stage, where it comes and get implanted over here. What do you mean by implanted? It is going to embed. Where embed? I don't understand, ma'am. So basically, I'll tell you. The uterus, no? The uterus has 3 layers. There is outer layer, okay, which is known as perimetrium. I don't think I need to write that as of now. Then there is an inner layer which is made up of muscles. Okay, you need muscles so that it could contract, the uterus could contract later during baby expulsion also. So baby has to move out, for that the uterus has to contract, right, naturally. So there is a muscular layer. So outer layer is one layer, inside that you have a muscular layer, and within that you have a layer, children. You have a layer, a glandular layer. I don't know if it's visible. I'll make it in yellow. Works? Now it's visible? What color will be the best? Now visible? Yeah, comparatively. This particular layer, the innermost layer, no, children, it is known as endometrium. It is the glandular layer. It is what? The glandular layer. Now, this particular layer is rich in blood supply, such that the embryo, once it comes, it can get implanted there and get enough amount of nourishment and nutrient and everything, and it can grow to become what, children? A fetus over here. It can grow to become what? A fetus. So, where does the implantation? Implantation as in, for example, I am going to plant something in the soil. This is known as implantation. When implantation happens in the human body, when something embryo is going to embed inside, it is going to get inside the walls of the uterus, that is in the endometrium. This is known as implantation. From now it will get all the nutrient and everything and it will grow. Okay, this is when fertilization has taken place. Again, I'll repeat. Ovum is released, sperm comes, both of them meet in the ampulla region, yeah, in the ampulla region, and then basically the zygote will divide into an embryo. The embryo keeps on dividing. It forms a stage which is known as blastocyst stage, where finally the embryo comes and get embedded inside the endometrium layer, the innermost layer. This endometrium layer is made every month. This endometrium layer is thickened every month. It's not like the layer is not there. One part, okay, one part of the endometrium, it is obviously always there, and it is the one responsible for making the next thickened layer. So this, both of them are known as endometrium itself. One is the basal layer, which is responsible for this particular formation of this particular thing, that is the other layer which sheds down. So one layer of endometrium always stays there, the other one sheds down if fertilization has not taken place. So if fertilization has not taken place, the uterus thinks, why I have made all this layer, let it shed down. There's no point of it. So it sheds down, and this process is known as what? Menstruation. Okay, or periods. Now let's see. Ovaries, what are those, children? They are a pair of almond-shaped structures located in the lower part of the abdominal cavity. It is there in the abdominal cavity, not outside, okay? When a girl child is born, her ovaries contain thousands of immature eggs or follicles. There will be thousands and thousands of immature eggs and follicles, and they will be there. Okay, so lots of them will be lost, not thousands, there will be more than thousands, okay, and lots of them will be lost, almost 60,000 will be left, okay. So it will be like there are so many, and then 60,000 will be left, and out of this 60,000 also a lot of them degenerate over time. So when puberty starts, the immature follicles start maturing, and each of them, each follicles, basically follicles means there are a group of cells that surrounds egg, that surrounds the oocyte. Okay, when they become mature, as in they have certain changes, there will be division inside the cell which is there, such that it will finally form an ovum and things like that. So lots of things happens when we hit puberty. Okay, when we hit puberty, lots and lots of changes happens in the ovary. Now going ahead, what are the things that we have? Oviduct or fallopian tube. So oviduct is also known as the fallopian tube. Okay, then there is uterus, there is cervix, and there is vagina. Fallopian tube or the oviducts are a pair of thin tubes that lead from ovaries to the uterus. You saw it, it leads from ovary to the uterus. Okay, the fertilization of ovum by the sperm also occurs inside the fallopian tube, I just told you. Now uterus is the place, or you call it womb. So womb is not the stomach of the mother, it's the uterus. It's a hollow pear shaped, so it's an inverted pear shape. Okay, usually pear it looks like this, right? But this is inverted pear shaped thing, muscular organ which is specialized to retain and nourish the fetus during pregnancy. Vagina is a muscular distensible tube leading to the outside of the body through an opening. So it is during childbirth that the child comes through this very narrow place. So that's why it is so painful. You can imagine the pain of your mother, okay, because through this particular narrow route the whole baby comes out, which is why the cervix and the vaginal canal together you call it what? Birth canal. This is where the babies are born. Now the uterus opens into the vagina through the cervix, that is also written over here. What if fertilization takes place? What if fertilization has taken place? As I said, it will slowly get embedded into the embryo, right? Sorry, in the endometrium or the innermost layer, and slowly. So initially endometrium is enough for the baby. Okay, endometrium is enough for the embryo, not the baby exactly, it is enough for the embryo. But with time obviously you need something, and that something is known as placenta. Okay, and placenta is that something, is a special tissue, okay, which is formed with the help of both the embryo and the mother. So mother's tissue, so for example this is the uterus. Mother's tissue also contributes to the placenta formation, and also the embryo which is formed, some part of it also contributes for the formation of placenta. Okay, now when placenta is formed, what happens is that, so just imagine there is a tissue over here which is richly supplied with blood vessels, and there is embryo which is growing over here. Okay, basically they will have a connection with the, which is known as umbilical cord. Umbilical cord. Okay, wait, it is not, I'll make it properly and I'll explain. See, there is something that is placenta. Okay, or if I have the picture I can explain like this also, right? Okay, there is this particular thing that you see over here, it is the placenta. Okay, and this is what this particular thing that you see over here, this is the umbilical cord. Umbilical cord. This umbilical cord has blood vessels in it. They have blood vessels in it which is going to connect to the placenta, and placenta also have blood vessels being coming from the mother's side. Okay, what happens when the blood vessels they come closer, they diffuse out things. The maternal blood will be giving the child oxygen and everything, all the nutrients, it will get diffused, whereas the child's blood vessels will be giving out carbon dioxide and all the waste product to the blood vessels which is there in the placenta. And now as I said, the placenta is acting as an interconnecting disc between what? The mother and the child. So obviously whatever CO2 is there goes to the mother's blood, it gets diffused in the mother's blood and then it goes outside. Okay, so placenta is a special type of tissue which is formed with the help of an embryo. So it's not like this, but initially when there is an embryo, it contributes some part of it for the formation of placenta, and also the uterine wall, that is of the mother, it also contributes some part for the formation of placenta, and together they are connected with the help of what? Blood vessels. But remember always, blood is not getting transfused from here to there. No, blood does not travel. Mother's and the child's blood does not mix Basically, for example, there is a blood vessel over here, there is a blood vessel over here. Oxygen comes out, it gets in this particular blood vessel, okay, if it is low in amount. So from the mother's blood, suppose this is the mother's blood vessel, from here oxygen will get inside the fetus blood vessel with the help of what, children? Diffusion. Similarly, the fetus will be having so much amount of carbon dioxide, it will go into the mother's blood and then mother will be taking it. Okay, so basically placenta is acting as a disc where it has everything, all the nourishment providing sources, okay, which is richly supplied with blood vessels, and from there, from baby's blood vessels are connected with the help of umbilical cord, which comes over here. The blood vessels, they get diffusion happen over there. Okay, now let's read it. The fertilized egg zygote, okay, zygote is also known as the fertilized egg, okay. It starts dividing and forms a ball of cells or embryo. What division is there, children? Mitosis or meiosis? It is mitosis. Mitosis. Okay, it is what? Mitosis. Mitosis. Okay. The embryo is implanted in the lining of the uterus where they continue to grow and develop organs to become what? Fetus. After implantation, a special type of tissue, placenta, develops between the uterine wall and the embryo with the help of both mother and the child, and here it will be richly supplied with blood vessels, which is why all the transfer of thing happens. Okay, the embryo gets nourishment from the mother's blood with the help of this special disc-shaped tissue which embeds in the uterine wall. The developing embryo will also generate waste substances which can be removed by transferring them into the mother's blood through the placenta itself. Okay. Now, what if fertilization does not take place, children? As I said, if the egg is not fertilized, the overgrown lining of the uterus breaks down and comes out along with the unfertilized egg. So this particular process where your uterus shuts down the endometrium layer, the temporary layer that is being formed, along with the unfertilized egg, it is known as what? Menstruation, and it will be lasting up to 2 to 8 days. Okay, 2 to 8 days, because the whole endometrium has to shut down there. Okay, the this basal membrane remains the same. It's a part of endometrium, but it remains there because it has to make the next layer of the upper endometrium, right? So the basal layer always stays there, the upper layer it shuts down. Now, yes, so this is the thing, egg, sperm is there, it forms zygote, this is single celled, it undergoes multiplication and differentiation. What do you mean by differentiation? That means a cell decides to become something. That is what you mean by differentiation. So cell knows that I have to become a skin cell or a heart cell or whatever cell. Okay, now this forms an embryo which is multicellular. Then implantation occurs. In what stage, children? Blastocyst. Where it occurs? Endometrium. Endometrium is, children, glandular layer. Okay, and then it forms a fetus. Then, now the last part of the chapter. Okay, so what are STDs? What do you mean by STDs? STDs means sexually transmitted diseases, or STIs, sexually transmitted infections, which is spread from an infected person to a healthy person with the help of sexual contact. Only during sexual contact it can transfer, which is why they are known as sexually transmitted diseases. Obviously, since it is sexually transmitted, it has to be spread through genital fluids such as sperm and all the fluids that the vaginal secretions have. Now, what do you mean by contraception? The methods or devices of birth control which deliberately prevents fertilization are referred to as what? Contraception. So you do not want fertilization to happen, or if fertilization has happened, you do not want the embryo to get embedded in your endometrium. All the steps comes under what? Contraception. This is a birth control mechanism. You do not want baby. You do not want baby to be formed. Okay. First one, barrier method. You have to remember the names of the methods. It's very, very important. It is mostly repeated. Okay. So barrier, as the term barrier suggests, it is going to form a physical barrier such that the sperm and the egg would not fuse. So there are physical devices to prevent the entry of sperm into the female genital tract during copulation, that is during sexual act. They also protect against STDs. So this is the only example, this is the only method that prevents STDs as well. Apart from baby formation also, it prevents STDs also, because here in the body there is no exchange of genital fluids. Okay, Let's see the example. Over here you have male condom, okay, which is inserted on the penis, okay, such that the sperm which is being released, it stays there in the condom itself, okay. That is about male condom. Now there is female condom as well, which is inserted into the vagina. Okay, there is female condom as well. There is something that is known as diaphragm. What is diaphragm? Basically, you know that this is the uterus and it forms cervix like this, right? So cervix are being capped like this with the help of diaphragm, such that during the sexual act, the sperms which is being released over here does not get inside the uterus. Now this does not protect with STIs, but as I said, the condoms, they definitely protect, and condoms are the one that comes under majorly, you call them under barrier method. Okay, so this question is asked, which is this method that protects against STIs? Children, it is barrier method, barrier method, barrier method. Okay, this is just for your extra knowledge because you are adolescents, and you need to have proper information about sexual contact and what are the consequences of it, which is why this explanation is given to you. Okay, so male condom, female condom, and diaphragm is for diaphragm, cervical caps, or for covering the cervix. But again, since the penis is being inserted, the chances are there that the fluid will be there, and later it could slowly enter and cause STIs and things like that. Okay, which is why this does not prevent STIs, sexually transmitted diseases. Only this and this can. But in general, we say barrier methods protects from STIs. Next thing, intrauterine devices. Intrauterine devices or intrauterine contraceptive devices, IUCD or IUD, same thing. Intrauterine devices, intrauterine contraceptive devices. That means inside the uterus you are going to put something such that the baby formation does not take place. Example is copper T, children. So it's a T-shaped thing which is inserted inside the uterus, and what does it do, children? It produces copper. It produces copper, and copper is that particular thing which affects the sperm motility. So for example, this people had copulation, sperm had entered, but the sperm won't be able to move towards the fallopian tube to fertilize the egg. Why? Because this copper is going to do certain changes in the sperm. They are going to affect the motility of the sperm, the movement of the sperm, and also the ability to fertilize. So in this way, the sperms will be killed. Now if sperm is killed, obviously nothing would be possible, the fusion would not be taking place. Apart from that, suppose what has happened, fertilization has happened. Still, that does not allow the endometrium layer and everything to be normal. They cause inflammation because you only think something external is put there. Okay, CU ions and everything is being released. This will obviously make our body alarm that something foreign is in there, and you need to provide inflammation. Now when inflammation happens, obviously it does not form a proper endometrium layer. So it is unsuitable for implantation. Implantation, as I said, for the embryo to get embedded into the wall. Embryo does not get embedded in the uterine wall. Got it? And it also makes the cervix hostile to sperm, as in nothing is happening. Okay, so that is one thing. You cannot insert it. Doctors insert it, that is copper T, and this is mainly used for if you want gap between babies, that's when it is used mostly. Okay, it has an effect for 5 years, and then after that it does not show that effect. It does not have any complications, but again it has to be put down by doctors. It is intrauterine contraceptive devices. Okay, this is copper T. This is copper T. It has a roll of copper, and that is how it is put. Okay, now surgical methods are also there. What do you mean by surgical methods? So surgical intervention blocks gamete transport and thereby conception. So over here you're blocking the road only. Okay, you're not waiting for copulation to happen. Basically copulation can happen, anything can happen, no problem. Let me block the road for the for the gamete to transport. Okay, so basically testis, as I said, will be producing what is that? Sperms, and sperm goes to epididymis. From here it goes to a vas deferens. Now if you cut the vas deferens, will the sperm go ahead? No. Will it affect your body? No. Sperm is still being produced. Sperm is still being produced. If you go ahead, if you see the seminal vesicle, it will be still be producing what? Its fluid and everything. So semen will be released. So semen will be released, but it would not have no sperm. It would not have any sperm. It will be just a secretion of the glands. Just the secretion of the glands. Now, when vas differens is cut, you call this process as vasectomy. Okay, you call this process as vasectomy because vas differens is cut. Now, tubectomy is one when, you know, in females, you have the fallopian tube which is getting connected to the uterus. If you cut down the fallopian tube and then tie it up somewhere, okay, there's a space. So, ovary, when it releases the ovum, can it go this side? No. Again, copulation will happen, everything will happen, sperm could come, but can it meet the egg? No. Now, this is a very important question. If this is happening, will menstruation take place? Yes, menstruation will definitely take place because ovaries are releasing egg, the egg will get degenerated, but ovaries are releasing egg, the uterus will obviously prepare for the egg to get fertilized because it does not know that the incision has taken place because our ovaries are still producing hormones, and these hormones are the ones which are responsible for maintaining the endometrium layer. So, periods also occurs as the same. Okay, this is tubectomy because fallopian tube is being cut. So, tubectomy because fallopian tube is being cut and tied. Okay. So, in vasectomy, a small part of the vas differens is removed or tied up through a small incision on the scrotum. So, on the scrotum, a small incision is made and then the vas differens is being cut. So, from scrotum only you can get it done. Okay. Whereas in tubectomy, a small part of fallopian tube is removed and tied up through a small incision. It's not like they are floating around there, they are tied up. Okay. It's all safe. That is what you mean by surgical method, and here gamete transport is majorly affected. Here sperm motility and the uterus wall is majorly affected. Here nothing is affected, you are just providing a physical barrier. Yeah, see, this is cut and tied, cut and tied. Now, oral pills are also used. Oral administration of small doses of either progestrogens or progestogen-estrogen combination in another contraceptive method used by females, which prevents development of egg and ovulation by inhibiting FSH. So, basically, when progesterone, estrogen is there, no children, estrogen, progesterone, when they are there, these are hormones, okay, female hormones. When they are put in excess amount, they will say, hey, follicle stimulating hormone, please stop your secretion. Now, follicle stimulating hormone, when it stops your secretion or when, so they won't be forming follicles around, they won't be helping in the maturation of follicles, and later on it won't be helping in ovulation. Ovulation means when ovum is released from the ovary, this is known as ovulation, and for that there is a huge need of FSH, that is follicle stimulating hormone, which stimulates the follicles to become mature and release the egg and things like that, and also one more hormone which is LH, luteinizing hormone. So, I will write it. FSH is follicle stimulating hormone and LH is luteinizing hormone. Again, I have luteinizing hormone. So, luteinizing hormone is the one that plays a major role for ovum production, that is ovulation. So, estrogen and progesterone are going to affect them, both of them, okay, such that ovulation does not take place. Now, if ovulation and anything does not take place, if egg is not released, then what do you expect? The sperm can fuse with anything? No. It's the same thing. So, oral pills are also being used, okay. Now, natural methods, there is one method which is known as natural method. What do you mean by that? Basically, natural methods works on the principle of avoiding chances of ovum and the sperm meeting naturally. So, periodic abstinence, that means in a period, okay, so during the menstrual cycle, okay, during the menstrual cycle there comes a phase where ovulation takes place, that is on the 14th day. So, it's a 28-day cycle usually, and on the 14th day, okay, ovulation takes place, that is egg is being released. So, during this particular period of time, if the couple decides to not copulate, do not have sexual intercourse, then they are safe. This is known as periodic abstinence, as in they are absent during this particular period. They are not performing sexual intercourse during this particular period where ovulation is expected. Another thing is withdrawal or coitus interruptus, where, as the term says, coitus interruptus, you are interrupting coitus. Coitus means what? Basically the sexual act. So interrupting sexual act, that is before the ejaculation happens, before the sperm is being released, okay, the penis is being withdrawn from the female body. But this is not a very efficient method, and since it is all natural methods, you are not putting medicines, you are not taking anything, so it is coming under the natural methods. Periodic abstinence and withdrawal or coitus interruptus is one such thing. Okay. Now, a woman is using copper tea. Will it help in protecting her from sexually transmitted diseases? You tell me. Copper tea just messes up with the motility of the sperm. The sperm still gets in, right? It still gets in, the fluids also gets in. Obviously, can it protect an organism from sexually transmitted diseases? No, because the fluids are still being passed on. If it was barrier method, then probably things would have been different. Okay. With this, we complete the chapter, children. Big tap on our backs, and yes, this is the homework that I have to give it to you. So please solve it, and we will be discussing it in the next session. We have this whole thing, take a screenshot or whatever you want. And now if you want a PDF of the whole thing, you can download the PDF. You can just click on the link which is there in the description box, and you will be guided to some page like this where you have the link for the PDF available date wise and topic wise. So please do that. And children, if you are very much doubtful of what you need to do after your 10th, we are here, we can help you out. That is DSAT, that is Diksha Scholastic Aptitude Test, where 60-minute concept based lecture is there, then aptitude test is there, then one-on-one counseling is there, and according to your marks and everything, there will be teachers who will be guiding you that what would choose you the best. Yeah, and it has also up to 90% scholarship, which obviously you do not want to miss, right? So that is there, and if you want to know more about it, you can visit the link that is given in the description box and have a good amount of information. Now, if you like the particular class, if you're happy with my teaching, then do not forget to subscribe to the channel and also comment down, because I'm really happy when I read down your sweet comments, and I hope that you have a very sweet day, just as sweet as you are. So that's all, children. Please take care. Bye-bye. Be happy. And that's all. Bye-bye.